New details this hour on the deaths of Toronto billionaires Barry and Honey Sherman. Let's show you a shot of their house right now. This is in Midtown Toronto. The couple, as we have reported here, was found dead in their home last month, and a source says private investigators...
It was a discovery that sent shockwaves not just through Toronto, but across the entire world. On a biting, cold December morning in 2017, the bodies of billionaire couple Barry and Honey Sherman were discovered in their opulent Toronto mansion. Known far and wide for their immense wealth, generosity, and philanthropic efforts, the Shermans seemed to embody the very essence of a perfect success story. But the revelations that emerged as investigators delved into the case would completely shatter this idyllic image. This was no tragic accident, nor was it a murder-suicide as initially speculated. What the investigators uncovered was chilling. Barry and Honey Sherman were victims of a calculated, deliberate double murder, a crime that left more questions than answers in its wake. Who could have possibly committed such an atrocious act against one of Canada's most influential and admired couples? And what possible motive could lie behind such a heinous crime? Barry Sherman was a man whose immense intellect and unrelenting ambition had become his trademarks. Born in 1942, he was a visionary who excelled in both academics and business. After earning degrees in engineering and aeronautics from the prestigious University of Toronto and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or MIT, Barry turned his sights on the pharmaceutical industry. He transformed a struggling company into a global powerhouse, founding Apotex, which became a cornerstone of the generic drug market. His meteoric rise, however, was not without turbulence. Barry's cutthroat business tactics and unyielding determination made him a polarizing figure. Over the years, he amassed not only tremendous wealth but also a list of adversaries, many of whom resented his aggressive style and the vast influence he wielded. In stark contrast, Honey Sherman, born in 1948, was widely regarded as the heart and soul of the couple. Known for her warmth, compassion, and tireless dedication to philanthropy, she became a beloved figure in Toronto's charitable community. Honey championed causes close to her heart, focusing on Jewish initiatives, education, and healthcare. Her generosity and unwavering commitment to helping others earned her deep admiration and respect. Together, Barry and Honey were a formidable pair. They raised 4 children and built a life that seemed as a perfect blend of power, prestige, and benevolence. Yet, as is often the case with such high-profile lives, the surface only told part of the story. Behind their public image lay hidden cracks. Barry's aggressive business dealings frequently brought stress and tension into their private lives. Lawsuits, rivalries, and fractured relationships with family and business associates created an undercurrent of discord. As their wealth and influence grew, so too did the number of people who harbored grievances against them. Resentment, jealousy, and unresolved disputes seemed to swirl around the couple, adding layers of complexity to their lives. On the fateful day their lives came to a horrifying end, a real estate agent entered their sprawling 12,000-square-foot home in Toronto, preparing for what should have been a routine property showing.
The day the bodies were found, there were quite a few people in their house. There was a housekeeper, there was a gardener, a personal trainer, and there was also a real estate agent who was showing their house to potential buyers. They go through the whole house, it's a big place, I believe 12,000 square feet, and toward the end of the tour, they get into the basement.
Instead, they stumbled upon a scene that would forever haunt them and captivate the nation. Barry and Honey Sherman, lifeless, positioned eerily near the indoor pool in the basement. It was a moment that marked the beginning of one of Canada's most baffling murder investigations. The details of the scene were as unsettling as they were puzzling. The Shermans' bodies were discovered side by side in a chilling tableau.
It's pretty rare for people of this wealth to be murdered, and in fact, Barry and Honey Sherman were among the wealthiest people ever to be murdered. What we don't know is who did it.
They were seated in a semi-upright position, their backs against a metal railing, with belts looped around their necks and secured to the railing, forming noose-like restraints. Both were fully clothed, their legs extended forward, and their posture suggested a careful, deliberate staging. This was no random act of violence or an impulsive crime. The meticulous arrangement of their bodies pointed to a perpetrator who was both methodical and calculating. It was a haunting image that raised immediate and urgent questions. Was this the work of someone they knew? A targeted attack meant to send a message? Could it have been a robbery gone wrong? The crime scene at the Sherman house was eerily precise, leaving few clues about the violence that unfolded. Investigators quickly realized there was no forced entry. This suggested the attacker or attackers likely knew the couple or had the skills to bypass the advanced security system. The house itself appeared neat, clean, and organized, with no signs of a struggle in most areas. The untriggered security system raised more questions, pointing to the possibility that the culprits weren't strangers. Honey Sherman's body showed clear signs of a fierce struggle. Her hands and face were injured, evidence that she fought back against her attacker.
And assess the crime scene where Barry and Honey Sherman were located in the basement by the pool. They failed to recognize the suspicious and staged manner.
She died from strangulation, with ligature marks on her neck matching the belts used to bind her. Barry Sherman's body told a different story. There were no defensive wounds, which led investigators to believe he was likely ambushed or restrained before he could react. Like Honey, Barry also had ligature marks on his neck, confirming strangulation as the cause of death. Their violent and sudden deaths left their children, Lauren, Jonathan, Alexandra, and Kaylin, devastated. The loss was overwhelming, blending their deep grief with a strong determination to uncover the truth. Barry had always been supportive of his children's dreams, while Honey was the glue that held the family together. She prioritized building strong relationships and involved her children in charitable work from a young age. When police first arrived at the Sherman mansion, they initially suspected a murder-suicide. They theorized Barry might have killed Honey before taking his own life. Barry's reserved and determined personality partially supported this idea, and the calm appearance of the scene suggested personal motives. However, friends and family quickly dismissed this theory, saying it didn't fit Barry's character or his relationship with Honey. People close to the couple often pointed out their differences. Honey was lively, social, and optimistic, deeply involved in philanthropy and community work. Barry, on the other hand, was more analytical, quiet, and methodical, particularly in his business dealings. To those who knew them well, the idea that Barry could harm Honey was unthinkable. Determined to find answers, the Sherman family hired a private investigative team to look deeper into the case. Former Toronto homicide detective Tom Klatt led the team and conducted a second autopsy. The findings turned the initial murder-suicide theory on its head and pointed to a more complex and sinister crime. The private autopsy confirmed that both Barry and Honey had been strangled. There were no signs of self-inflicted injuries or the typical marks seen in suicides. Barry's lack of defensive wounds and the precise nature of the murders indicated a well-planned double homicide rather than a tragic family incident.
Both Honey and Barry Sherman were in fact targeted.
Frustrated by what they saw as a botched investigation, the Sherman children and their lawyers publicly criticized the Toronto police. They argued that labeling the case as a murder-suicide early on delayed the investigation and potentially caused critical evidence to be lost. From the start, the family felt the police hadn't taken the case seriously enough, which drove them to bring in a private team to perform the autopsy and investigate further. After facing public Backlash and conducting further investigations, the Toronto police officially abandoned the murder-suicide theory in January 2018. They acknowledged the shortcomings of their initial approach and reclassified the case as a targeted double homicide. While confirming this, the police shared very few details about suspects or motives, leaving many questions unanswered and the mystery unsolved.
2 years ago, on December the 13th, 2017, Barry and Honey Sherman were murdered in their home. The police investigation has been and continues to be active and ongoing. The work of the private investigative team hired by the family at the outset has been completed.
The killings of Barry and Honey Sherman have given rise to numerous theories, each highlighting different aspects of their lives, work, and relationships. One of the most prominent theories focuses on Barry's career. As the founder of Apotex, Barry's aggressive business strategies and constant legal battles created many enemies. Conflicts with competitors, former allies, and even government agencies were a regular part of his life. Some speculate that the murders may have been orchestrated by someone within the pharmaceutical industry, perhaps a rival, or even a disgruntled former business partner. Barry's outspoken nature and willingness to challenge the system likely made him a target for those seeking revenge or a more permanent solution to their grievances. Another perspective centers on potential family conflicts. Barry had complex relationships with some of his relatives. His cousins, for example, had previously sued him over the division of Apotex's profits, claiming a share of the wealth he had built.
And he told me in his office one day, he says, you know, they're trying to set me up, he said. And then I went, get out of here. Barry goes, no, I'm serious. They're trying to frame me up.
Although the lawsuits were eventually dismissed, the bitterness and resentment that emerged during these legal battles raised questions. However, this theory holds less weight, as no concrete evidence has tied any family member to the crime. A third theory suggests the murders were the work of professionals. The meticulous way the bodies were positioned and the absence of physical evidence, such as fingerprints or DNA, led some to believe that highly trained individuals carried out the killings. Experts have noted that this level of precision indicates a deep understanding of how to commit such a crime without leaving any traces, adding weight to the idea that the perpetrators might have been hired professionals. Financial pressures also form a key part of the discussion. In the years leading up to their deaths, Barry and Apotex faced increasing legal and regulatory challenges, including a significant U.S. price-fixing investigation. Some have argued that these financial and reputational strains could have provided a motive for the murders. Whether the crime was carried out by someone acting on behalf of investors or as a response to Apotex's mounting issues remains uncertain, but it's a theory that continues to be explored. From the outset, the investigation into the deaths of Barry and Honey Sherman faced significant challenges. Despite the resources poured into the case, progress was slow. Toronto police reviewed thousands of hours of security footage, including video from the area surrounding the Sherman house, but the available evidence made it difficult to develop clear leads. Investigators also conducted interviews with approximately 240 witnesses and fielded over 1,200 public tips. These ranged from anonymous suggestions about potential motives to sightings of suspicious individuals. Yet none of these efforts produced an immediate breakthrough, leaving the case unsolved for years. In December 2021, a potential breakthrough gave the investigation new momentum. Security footage revealed a person of interest walking near the Sherman home around the time of the murders.
We have been able to eliminate the vast majority of people captured on the video. We are left with one individual whom we have been unable to identify. I'll ask that you take a look at the screen and observe this individual.
However, the grainy and poor quality video made it hard to identify any specific details about the individual. While this finding initially seemed promising, police withheld further information, citing the need to protect the integrity of the investigation. Unfortunately, the lead did not result in any arrests or significant advancements. As months passed, the investigation appeared to stall once again, leaving the case unresolved. The deaths of Barry and Honey Sherman also sparked a legal battle over their vast estate, estimated at $5 billion. The wealth was eventually divided among their 4 children. Meanwhile, investigative journalist Kevin Donovan of the Toronto Star sought access to confidential court documents related to the estate, arguing that transparency was essential for justice. Donovan's investigations revealed that Barry's financial and legal troubles included allegations of price fixing and multiple lawsuits against Apotex. These revelations painted a picture of a man under immense pressure, fueling further speculation about potential motives behind the murders. Despite years of investigation, many questions remain unanswered. Who killed Barry and Honey Sherman, and why? Was it personal resentment, professional rivalry, financial pressure, or something else entirely? These unresolved mysteries keep the case alive in the public's mind, sparking ongoing debate and discussion. The quest for answers continues, leaving the world to wonder about the forces that led to such a shocking and tragic end for the Shermans.